The Pittsburgh Penguins, they're highly skilled. They're highly publicized. They got the biggest, most talked about GM. They got the biggest, most talked about defenseman. And they're old.
Oh.
Are the Pittsburgh Penguins a playoff team? Okay, so let's start at the beginning with Kyle Dubas. What does he bring to the front office that will change the Penguins? We obviously are well acquainted with Kyle Dubas. What is he going to do here? And I'm not talking about just like specific players. I'm talking about ethos.
Well, he's got two missions, right? Get them a Stanley Cup probably over the next 2 years. And then that's when the conversation of rebuilding begins.
Right.
The Penguins and Capitals are always going to be tied at the hip in terms of how they're perceived. Pittsburgh might be better than them now. The Capitals' future is brighter. Like the Penguins, who in the organization under like 21 do they even have? It's not a very big list. And if you're a really harsh critic, you could argue it's no list. But he's going to come in and he's going to be bold. He's already gone out and gotten Erik freaking Karlsson and solved a bunch of issues while doing it. So we've seen Dubas do that with Toronto when he started off. But again, they need a cup. They need to get Crosby his last cup. And they went out and got a guy who got out of the first round once. It's interesting.
I don't think anybody can disagree with getting Crosby his last cup. But Jesse,
of course,
do you agree with them sticking with Malkin and Letang and then doubling down on the age by bringing in Karlsson to get Crosby his last cup?
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do when you have Crosby, Malkin, and Letang? You're not going to move one of those guys. Kyle Dubas walked in there and his hands were tied behind his back. You're not going to look Sidney Crosby in the eye and say, hey, I'm your new boss and I'm getting rid of your two guys that you spent your entire career with. That's a ridiculous way to start your tenure in Pittsburgh.
He's only like 6 years older than him.
Dubas is?
Yeah, at 5 than Malkin.
Yeah. And so I think he had to go with those three. And getting Erik Karlsson he wanted to make the biggest splash of whoever was available, and that was the giant defenseman that was out there. So I see it all makes logical sense, the direction that Dubas is going.
Funniest power play in the league.
It is going to be
easily.
goofy.
Like, just looking at it, like the play hasn't even started yet. You're just looking at who's lining up on the faceoff, and you just go lol.
So it's Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, probably Letang, and Karlsson.
Do you throw Letang and Karlsson on the same power play unit? Yeah. You don't split them up.
Is there enough puck? I don't know. I don't even know.
They're probably going to go with that, but I would probably
sign Kessel.
Yeah.
Sign him. It's funny. It's funny.
The Athletic has the Penguins defense among the best in the league, just outside of the god tier like Hurricanes level. I wanted to know if you agree, because I'm not sold. Ryan Graves, Chris Letang, Marcus Pettersson, Erik Karlsson, P.O. Joseph, and Chad Ruedel, and then Ty Smith is on the outside looking in.
That's Oliver Pierre to you.
I'm sorry, Oliver Pierre.
Pierre Oliver.
Pierre Oliver. That's what it is.
Olivier.
So what do we think?
They're gonna move the shit out of that puck.
I like Marcus Pettersson a lot. I don't think he gets enough credit.
Yeah, but like Karlsson is so bad in his own end, so bad, and like Letang's getting there. I mean, you do have some guys who, now they have zero offensive burden whatsoever. Marcus Pettersson and Ryan Graves, so that's good. I don't hate either deal, really. But to call it, they call it the fourth best in the league.
It's just outside of like
the second tier.
It's second tier, so I would imagine it's probably seventh or eighth.
I mean, they're good. They're good at
one thing.
Here, does this
make sense?
One thing. Yeah, they're good at one thing. They're good at overall. Are they good hockey players? Yeah. Can they defend? No, not at all.
Right, and that brings me to what is Pittsburgh going to do in net? Because if you're going to concede a lot of shots, you're going to need Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic, who is now a Pittsburgh Penguin, to stand on their heads. And Jarry is what he is. He's 28 years old. The good and the bad, and Penguins fans are familiar with both. Nedeljkovic has now had 2 franchises give up on him. I wonder, are we feeling good about these guys catching a lot of rubber?
Like, Jarry is one of the most mystifying goalies in the entire NHL. Every time you go and look at his numbers, they're good. Every time you go and watch him play, it's bad.
Yeah. When was the last time you watched a Pittsburgh Penguins game and Jari was good?
Well, it's not even good. It's the goals he'll go in there, stop, I don't know, 30 of 33, which is a pretty good night. Yeah. And 2 of the 3 stink.
Yeah, but you should have been 32 of 33.
Like they just stink.
Yeah, he also hasn't been good in the playoffs in a long time.
Yeah, and Ned it's Ned. I don't know. Like yeah, there's still potential there. Like, wasn't he nominated for the Calder?
Yeah.
I believe. And we ripped the Hurricanes for giving up on him. And he went to Detroit and said with his whole diaphragm, he said, I know it's not pronounced that way. He said, I am not that guy. I'm not that guy, pal. Trust me, I'm not that guy.
He was
I
given
am
the
not
chance.
the guy who got nominated for the Calder. I am a waiver goalie.
Ryan Graves was an interesting signing. Long term at $4.5 million. It is just objectively for the player, especially as we move into a very accelerated cap era. Very, very good value. And it seems like he's a guy that is totally cool with being there for the end of the Crosby era and the beginning of the next one. And the next one is a bunch of question marks. They could be down where Philadelphia is in a couple of years. What do you feel about what Ryan Graves brings to this team, guys?
Oh, I mean, they do need a player like that. If you concede that, hey, we're going to play some stupid fun hockey on the right side, the left's got to be a little boring.
Okay.
So he's got to know what his job is, right? And I mean, he played with Colorado. They weren't like, all right, here comes Ryan Graves to save the day. No, they had Devon Taves and Kel McCarr and Sam Girard
Bo
to
Byram,
a lesser degree.
all those guys, yeah.
Bo Byram,
Sam
yeah. Like there were guys who could move the puck there. You got to be a brick shithouse.
A couple of interesting ads that seem very Pittsburgh. Okay, like Brian Rust-esque. Except for the fact that, Rust is still there, but,
Less upside?
Yeah, a little less upside. Riley Smith, a very interesting.
Not who I thought you were going to say.
No, I was going to bring, well, I'll bring up the other guy later, but Riley Smith, what does he bring? Pretty valuable ad, I think.
Oh, dude, you added him for a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy who can score, I don't know, between 20 and 30 goals. There's a guy who can, I don't know, is it out of the question that he could be on your power play? Is it out of the question he could play on the top line? Is it out of the question he could put up 50, 60 points, maybe more? No. And all that for a 3rd-round pick and a pretty reasonable cap hit? That's a great move.
Noel Acciari followed Kyle Dubas from Toronto to Pittsburgh. We got a short look at him, but I got to tell you, he's one of my favorite deadline pickups the Leafs have ever made. What's he going to bring to this team, guys?
A lot of people lamented the Leafs losing O'Reilly, losing Luke Shen. I love Noel Acciari. I mean, just what a pain in the ass who's like a puck thief and can bang in goals. He's got a decent shot too. Like just a guy willing to do everything and a nose that goes in 3 or 4 different directions.
Yeah.
So you know what he's willing to do.
Jesse, you look deep in thought.
Regarding?
I don't know. You're looking contemplative over there. Is there something deep and philosophical you have to say about the Penguins?
I think if we backed up a little, the biggest question is probably Tristan Jarry. When you look at the entire lineup, you're like, okay, they're going to find a way to put up a couple goals, especially with Erik Karlsson. Like the goals you're going to get from the defense now.
They're going to give up quality opportunities.
Like the forward group might look a little lacking in offensive skill, but you have to count Erik Karlsson amongst the offense that they're going to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
he's a rover.
Yeah, and I'm probably in the same area that the Athletic has them in terms of the defense. It's not great, but it's in that mid tier. And one of the biggest question marks is Tristan Jarry, who has had like one decent season in a few years now. When you go back to the what was that, the 2021 season that he had that was really good, and he's had like one good
St.
playoff
Louis.
series.
He went to the All-Star game in St. Louis, so that would have been 2020.
And you go back to his playoff games, so I was looking them up. He's played the 2021 season. He had 6 games. They were eliminated 6 games, 888.
He's terrible.
And last season, he went down with the injury for game 1, right? And after that game, so that doesn't.
No, last year they didn't even make it.
Oh, sorry, the 2022
the year
season.
before.
Yeah, 2022 season. So, like, Tristan Jarry has very little experience in the playoffs, and I don't know. That's kind of the biggest question mark for me is in goal for them.
It's funny, we're putting around the edges. Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, who you just sort of pencil in missing between 20 and 40 games every year, were really, really good in relatively healthy seasons.
So we need that, a little bit more of that for the Penguins to succeed.
And if you don't get it, then it's Jeff Carter and his band of merry men.
That's
and
right.
You're kind of screwed.
So with that, gentlemen, where do you have the Pittsburgh Penguins finishing in the Metropolitan?
I mean, they're arguably the biggest wild card in the division. Fifth. I'm just not that impressed.
Jesse Blake.
Yeah, I have them behind the Islanders in 5th.
I do too. And I'm going against my own gut, which is you never bet against Sidney Crosby. I was, people weren't very happy with me. I said I think he had one of the worst July 1sts out there. It's improved by the fact that Erik Karlsson is now a Penguin. I did love the Nola Chari thing. Maybe I was just salty about that. But
Riley Smith.
Yeah, and Riley Smith too. Really great pickup. I just don't believe yet. You got to prove it. Got to prove it to me. Don't believe yet. We'll see what happens. They are going to be fun to watch, though, no matter what. It's Pittsburgh Penguins.